you were created on purpose for a purpose. So everything about who you are was intentional. And all we have to do is understand the purpose, why we were created the way we are, and live that out. And I promise you, it is not just to look beautiful. It is not just to remain thin or to become thin. It is much bigger than that. So the less we focus on that and are distracted by that, the more easily we can find the purpose that we're on this planet.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. If you have ever struggled with your weight, then you know it is a long, hard road. Wouldn't it be great if future generations didn't have to go through that? What if all of our girls grew up knowing that their bodies didn't define them? That message is more important now than ever. Girls today get cut down on social media. Complete strangers comment on their appearance. They get told they're fat and they're ugly. And what do? Do we just tell them they're beautiful and hope it works? Our guest for today can help. Rebekah Buege is a confidence coach who helps women find joy in femininity, become friends with their bodies, and stop letting self-consciousness stand in the way of happiness. She'll be sharing tips on how we can empower our girls to shrug off the body shamers. Welcome, Rebekah.
Thank you so much for having me here, Amy. I am really excited to talk with you about this very important topic.
It is so important. One of the things that I find mysterious is, I grew up well before the era of social media, and yet I really, really hated my body. So why do so many girls hate the way they look?
I think there are a few reasons, and it starts with the fact that everything when it comes to women is focused on our appearance. It's how we talk about other women. It's how we see other women portrayed in the media, no matter if that's social media or a magazine or a black and white TV show. We're always shown women in a certain way. We only see certain types of women shown in our culture. And so that plants the belief that if I don't look like that woman who the story is about, then I might have to change something about me in order to feel good enough to have a story be about me. So there's that aspect of it, that so much of what we talk about is appearance-based when it comes to women. And the other piece of it is, as you look back through culture, different decades that we've lived through, different body types of women have been seen as the pinnacle of female beauty. So if this keeps changing over time, how are we ever supposed to know what we're supposed to be? So it's this double-edged sword where the standard is changing, but yet we're always reminded that our appearance is the most important thing when it comes to us being a woman.
That is so true. And it's so interesting about the different body types changing throughout history. One of the things that we've seen recently is we've seen a push. There's a great Dove ad campaign to get more images of different women body shapes and sizes in the media, and a push to try and help girls see that all different body types can be beautiful. But we still go to our girls and we say, "You're beautiful. I mean, look at this. Here's a picture of a girl who looks like you. You're beautiful." And they still don't believe us. So how do we get it into their heads?
Yes. I love that ad campaign, by the way. That was one of the main turning points for me personally, of like, wow, yes, this is the reason I've been thinking so critically of myself, is because I've only ever seen women who look this way in advertisements. And so seeing and normalizing real bodies is so important. But beyond that, and to your point, you can't just say, well, you're beautiful anyway, or everyone's beautiful. And the reason you can't say that is because it does two things. It cheapens the beauty that some women have, and it feels like you're lying to the women who just aren't as beautiful as others. And we don't want to lie to ourselves. That's why it's so difficult, because you won't ever believe that. You will not believe a lie I will never believe that the sky is green because I know it's blue. And so what you can do instead is you take beauty off of its pedestal. That would be like saying everyone's equally smart. Everyone is equally athletically inclined. Everyone is equally a good singer. No, they're not. But when it comes to beauty, we put it on this pedestal thinking that we need that in order to be worthy and valuable as women. And so the trick is to take the beauty and put it on that level playing field with everything else about who you are as a person, and realize that beauty, while it can be idolized in our culture, does not define you as the most important part about who you are. It's one factor of many things that makes you a woman and that makes you you.
Yeah, that is so true. Because you're right. Because when we say, well, everyone's beautiful, we're still focusing on their appearance and not
Right.
everything else.
Right.
So I love that. But one of the real issues that girls today have that I didn't have when I was a kid is that, unfortunately, on social media, with all of the selfies, and it's so visual, especially Instagram, girls do get reduced to their appearance because that's the format. And we don't always know what's going on. Like, I have no idea, what my daughter does on her accounts on her computer. I probably shouldn't have. And so, she could be getting body shamed when she goes to school. Kids could be telling her things about her appearance. And I would never know. How can we help protect our children and give them that message when they're out in the big wide world and we don't always know what's going on out there?
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way you asked the question, because I don't see it as protecting your children. We can't protect them from everything, but what we can do is we can equip them with a foundation of truth about who they are, what makes them valuable, and also how easy it is in this digital culture to fake it. There are so many different apps you can use to edit your photos and make yourself look exactly the way you want to look. But that doesn't mean that that girl you follow who you really want to look like her, maybe she doesn't even look like that. And again, if she does, that's only one part about who she is. And I understand that in a visual app like Instagram, it's very easy to get pulled into that. But again, it comes down to which accounts are you choosing to follow? And what are you choosing to post? Because you can post about things other than your body. You can post about things other than the way you look, but that is the easiest way for women, especially, to get likes. And so it comes back to then, why do you feel like you need to have so many likes? And really instilling self-esteem in your kids at home, and telling them, hey, there are going to be people who judge you based on how many Instagram followers you have. But are those people really someone that you want to be friends with? That I wouldn't want to be friends with someone like that. So it's always about like the root of what's actually going on. And our kids these days, I hate even saying that phrase, but kids these days, they go through different things than any other generation. And so focusing on equipping them and preparing them to handle that is the best tool that we have. A strong offense is the best tool in a situation like this, because it will happen. It's just, what type of foundation can they fall back on when they come across something like that?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the really hard question now. So your daughter comes home and she's crying and you say, what's wrong? And she's like, look at this. And she holds up her phone and she posted a selfie.
Yep.
And the trolls are just what do you say and do at that point as a parent?
So in that situation, I would say, think of the last time you said something mean to another person, and how were you feeling about yourself in that moment? Because the truth is, anytime we are being critical, negative, and trying to tear someone else down, it's because we don't feel good enough. We are struggling with something and we're trying to project that onto someone else. So this person who's commenting that you're gross, you're ugly, think of the amount of anger and hate and frustration that they would need to have in their heart in order to post that on a stranger's picture. Like, what's going on in their life that's what they think is what they're going to do with their time right now. So just try to shift the perspective that this person would say this to anyone. It's not about you. It says more about what that person is going through. And man, they must be quite unhappy with themselves in order to say something like that to another person. And while it hurts, of course it hurts, their opinion of you does not define you.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. That should be like a big quote put up on the wall. It doesn't define you. It's just their opinion, and it says more about them than you.
Right.
So I know that your perspective is that we need to give our kids a strong foundation, but I know some parents have said, actually, we need to go further than that. And we do need to make sure that we don't have women's magazines in our home. We don't want to watch beauty pageants on TV. We want to really create a sanctuary at home where we're not consuming images of women that reduce women to bodies. What's your perspective on that?
Initially, I agree to a certain extent, but again, you can't create a false environment for them where it's never even talked about, right? So let's say that there's a magazine, or let's say that there's a TV show on, and it's more so focused on women's bodies. You can take that as a learning opportunity and a teaching opportunity to say, okay, girls, this is what this show is about, but I just want you to remember that every single one of the women on that stage has a story and has hopes and dreams and interests. And while right now we're talking about the way they look, because that can be something that someone's really interested in. If it's like a fitness physique competition, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And we don't want to demonize that in our culture. But just remind them of all the dimensions of these women, because I think that's the main flaw is we start to see women as one-dimensional, and that dimension is, what do you look like? And even if you do look the way that people want you to, there's that piece in your heart that's like, well, but I'm more than this. And how long is this even going to last? And what happens in 5 years when the beauty standard changes? Then who do I become? So it's also not true that these women who are winning certain competitions have it all. Nobody has it all. And I think that that's something to keep in mind as well. So while I do believe that we shouldn't have an abundance of women's bodies on display in our homes, I don't think we should shy away from talking about it or from creating just a realistic environment for kids to be able to ask questions and for them to be exposed to it in a way that's intentional and educational, rather than the passive way that they're exposed to it every day on their phone.
Yeah. And the whole key there is conversation and talking about it. One of the first times that I ever had to have this conversation about bodies with my daughter was way back in first grade. It starts early where there's and I hate to use the words, but the fat kid at school, and he was getting bullied, and my daughter felt that was unfair, because even at that first grade level, kids were making kids about other people's weight. And I know that weight is a really big issue, but like I said, with young kids, it's really obvious, and they notice it, and they notice that people behave differently around kids who are larger. How do you have that conversation with children?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's the kids who notice it. I think it's the parents who are projecting their ideas about body ideals onto their kids. It's the parents who start talking about weight. And then when the kid goes to school, they realize, oh, this person is bigger. That means they're fat, and that means it's bad. So kids, they're sponges. They learn, they absorb. And so it starts at home with the parents and how parents talk about other people's bodies or even their own bodies. Sometimes, I mean, it starts with us, like as the parents, the way you talk about your body and other people's bodies is how your kids are going to do it. So that's where it starts. But then if you're in the scenario, obviously you can't control everyone else's home life, but if you're in the scenario where your child has been exposed to someone being bullied for their weight, how do you have that conversation? Again, I would start with explaining to them that's how they're choosing to see this person. That's how they've been taught to judge and measure other people. But what do you think about this person's personality? What do you think about their heart? Do you think they're a good person? Are they nice to you? Are they fun to play with? Okay, well, that's how we talk about people in our family. That's how we see people in our family. So it's okay for other people if they are going to do that. Like, you can't control that. You can help them see this person in that way, but that's not how we do it in our family, and that's not how nice people do it.
I really love that. And I wish all parents had access to that sort of insight, because it would make the world such a better place. So, what's one of the really difficult things is that we have these issues when we're kids. You know, like I said, my defining memory of my teenage years was hating the way I looked and just praying that the magic makeover fairy would come and I would suddenly look totally different. And some of us, and I know some women don't, but so many of us carry that through. And we
Yeah.
grow into women who still feel that we're supposed to look different, that there was something profoundly wrong with the way we looked from a young age. And we know better. We're grown women, we're rational, we've got families, we've got careers, but that insecurity is still inside. You work with women to break that cycle. I want to know what you do and how you help grown women work through this.
So 97% of women have negative thoughts about their body every day. So in order to go into that 3%, in order to raise your hand and say, I want this to stop, you need to approach the issue as if you are going to become a very small percentage of the population. This is going to be a big task. I use analogies all the time, and it's like when I started approaching my marathon training, right? I didn't have this expectation. So when I started training for my marathon, I couldn't even run a mile. Okay. I was not a runner. And so I set this expectation of this is going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of time, but I'm so committed to this goal. This is such a big, important thing for me that I'm going to do whatever it takes to train myself to get there. That's the same perspective that you need to have with your body image and your confidence, because we trick ourselves into thinking that this should be easy. But if it were easy, 97% of women would not struggle with that. So I just want to start with that, where it's a big undertaking. You have to be patient with yourself. You're going to mess up, but if you keep going, you can rewire your neural pathways to go towards confidence rather than towards insecurity. Because right now you have ingrained the insecurity pathway in your thoughts for years. So we just need to reroute it and make this new path. And you do that through small steps every day, through big, deep conversations about when was the first time you noticed that you were in a woman's body versus a guy's body or any body. And when was the first time you thought that the shape of your nose was wrong? Because every time it comes from an idea that someone else put in your mind. No one is born thinking that their nose is wrong. No one is born thinking that they should have been blonde. No one. So it always comes from a thought or belief that someone else placed in your mind. And over time, you can work through that, focusing on the purpose of your body, focusing on the right perspective of your body, and then getting rid of those beliefs that people who didn't know what they were talking about, frankly, put in your mind about who you're supposed to be.
Now, for those of you watching, if you want to break that cycle of body image stress, not just for yourself, but for future generations, then you need to go check out all of the resources Rebekah has to offer you, including her podcast, Confidently She. And we have a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/Rebekah. That's yourbrilliance.org/REBEKAH. Thank you so much, Rebekah, for coming onto the show. And I wondered if you had any last message you would like to leave our viewers with.
Thank you so much, Amy. The only thing I want people to hear and remember is that you were created on purpose for a purpose. So everything about who you are was intentional. And all we have to do is understand the purpose, why we were created the way we are, and live that out. And I promise you, it is not just to look beautiful. It is not just to remain thin or to become thin. It is much bigger than that. So the less we focus on that and are distracted by that, the more easily we can find the purpose that we're on this planet.
Thank you so much, Rebekah. And thank you out there for watching. Now, did you have any aha moments or insights while watching this interview? If so, share them with us in the comments. And for more interviews like these, make sure to subscribe to Your Brilliance TV here on YouTube, and then come on over to yourbrilliance.com for more tips and insights on how you can live your most brilliant life. See you next time.